The reason I am telling this story is not to scare, quite the opposite, to put something on record, because there is something I have realized. Some events grow stronger when they are not spoken aloud. Everything started with a very simple detail. One evening, when I was home alone, it wasn't late, around 10:40 p.m. The television was on, but the volume was so low it was barely audible. I was sitting in the kitchen checking messages on my phone. At that moment, a noise came from the house. It was clear, the creaking sound of wood under someone's step. It happens in old houses, I know. But this sound was not one of the sounds the house was used to. It was like a single step. Then it stopped. I listened. It didn't happen again. I told myself, upstairs. But then I remembered, the upstairs was empty. They had moved out months ago. The place the sound came from was the floor where my room was. I unplugged the television. The house suddenly became very quiet. So quiet that even my own breathing sounded loud to me. A few seconds later, I heard another sound, this time closer, from the hallway. I don't want to call it footsteps, because footsteps are more even. This was unsteady, as if someone had just learned how to walk. One step, a pause, then another step. It came to the front of my door. The door was closed but not locked. I reflexively reached for the door to lock it, but something stopped me. An illogical but powerful feeling. If I locked it, it would understand that I was here. Light was coming from under the door. The hallway light was on. I looked to see if there was a shadow, a foot, a leg, anything. There was nothing. Then I heard a very faint rubbing sound. Outside the door, as if someone was moving a finger, sliding it around. Not with a fingernail. Softer, more patient. Someone listening to the door. I stepped back. I crouched at the edge of the bed. At that moment, I realized my phone was with me. It wasn't on the table, but I didn't remember putting it there. I turned the phone on. There was the time on the lock screen, 10:41 p.m., but under it there was another line. It wasn't like a notification. You can hear. In panic, I dropped the phone from my hand. The sound outside the door stopped as well. That night, the light stayed on until morning. No one came. The door didn't open. Nothing happened. When morning came, everything was normal. Until I went into the kitchen. There was a glass on the table. It was half full of water. The glass was mine. Yes, but I hadn't poured the water. Worse than that, the glass was turned the opposite way. The handle was facing the exact opposite direction of how I always hold it. I couldn't touch the glass. I left the house early that day. The following days passed quietly, until the third night. This time, there were no sounds. Something worse happened. I woke up from my sleep, for no reason, no alarm, no noise. Just the feeling of being awake. My room was dark, but pale light from the street lamp seeped through the gap in the curtain. I didn't dare to stand up. I didn't move, because I felt that I was not alone in the room. I don't know how to explain this. It may sound ridiculous. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. But the room was full. The air was different, as if someone had been there for a long time, and I was the one who had just arrived. My phone vibrated. The screen turned on. This time, there was no text. The front camera was open. On the screen, there was my room. But the angle was wrong, not from bed level. It was looking from the upper corner of the door, as if someone was leaning next to the door, silently watching. And on the camera image, I was lying in the bed. But there was someone else in the room. It wasn't clear. There was no face, but it was obvious it was human. Its shoulders were slightly hunched forward. Its head was tilted just a little to the side. The phone vibrated again. This time there was sound. A very short sound played, like a whisper. "You are awake." At that moment, the lights turned on. The room was empty. The phone shut off. In the morning, I tried to find the video again. I checked the gallery. There was nothing. But in the trash folder, there was an empty file. I couldn't open it. There was only a date. Time in 10:41 p.m. After that day, something changed. The sounds in the house decreased, but the feeling of being watched increased. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I notice that my reflection's eyes look away before mine do. Sometimes I put my phone on the table, then I find it somewhere else. And the worst part is this. Now, on some nights, when I walk around the house, I am the one making the footsteps. But when I stop, the sound keeps going.